Go ahead.
Good evening. I hereby call the Palm Springs regular City Council meeting of January 12th, 2023 to order. Tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Allie Seward. Allie is a senior at Palm Springs High School and the president of both the Future Business Leaders of America and the Academy of Business Leadership and Entrepreneurship. Please stand and join Allie in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Allie. So if you are a Palm Springs student, high school aged or younger, and would like to lead us in the pledge at a future meeting, please send me an email or contact City Hall. City Clerk, can we please conduct a roll call?
Councilmember DeHart.
Here.
Councilmember Hostage.
Here.
Councilmember Middleton.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor Gardner.
Here.
5 members present.
Thank you. So we are conducting a virtual meeting tonight due to a COVID exposure, but the next council meeting will be held in person. At this time, I'd like to call on Councilmember Middleton to provide us a much needed update on the state of Indian Canyon, Geonotree, and Vistachino roads.
Right.
Councilmember.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And I really appreciate this opportunity to give an update on what we are doing to try to deal with the traffic issues that arise whenever one of those 3 routes is closed. And during the course of any typical year, about 25 days during the year, we have closures of Geonotree and or Indian Canyon. Those are significant arterials that make a tremendous difference for traffic, not only in Palm Springs, but has cascading effects throughout the Coachella Valley. And we certainly saw that last evening, and even into this morning. The good news I would like to tell you is that Vistachino is now open and Geonotree is now open. There are only 7 routes into and out of the city of Palm Springs, and 3 of those routes go through the Whitewater Wash, and they go through at essentially ground level. With both Geonotree and with Indian Canyon, we have some very severe restrictions on what we can do because it is a habitat for the Casey's June beetle. Now, that does not mean we can't do anything, and we are trying to do a number of issues, and we have been working on them for some time. What I am particularly pleased about is our efforts have been valley-wide and have the support of all of the cities in the Coachella Valley through the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. After the impact that we had in 2019 with the St. Valentine's Day rainfall and all of the flooding and delays that created, the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, or CVAG's Transportation Committee met to discuss how could we mitigate better the kinds of impacts that we're having. What we were looking at with Geonotree and with Indian Canyon was 2 bridge projects, both of which follow traditional bridge architecture. It is nearly a mile of wash that would have to be covered by those bridge projects. And the estimates that we had approached $300 million per bridge. And that was some old numbers. If we were to revisit those numbers today, we're probably looking at something closer to $350 million to build the kind of bridges that are traditionally built. What we recognized is we had gone decades without getting the federal funding that is needed for those kinds of bridges. And particularly looking back at the previous federal administration, there was very little hope that we were going to see the kind of funding that we needed. So CVAG's Transportation Committee, Executive Committee authorized a technical study to identify what were alternatives that we could do to take and successfully bridge these important arterials. And what was reported back to us was a proposed project that across Indian Canyon, which is the most critical of the bridges because that is the primary route that is used by ambulances coming from anywhere north of the freeway to get to Desert Regional Hospital. And let me just digress for a moment. There are tremendous inconveniences that are associated whenever we have to shut down those roadways. But for those individuals living north of the freeway, when those roadways at Indian Canyon and Gene Autry are closed and they need to take an ambulance to get to Desert Regional Hospital, the amount of time that it can take for that ambulance is sometimes as much as 3 times it would otherwise be. Those are matters of life and death. And we take those incredibly seriously. And I really want to thank Mayor Scott Mattis in Desert Hot Springs for all of the support and work that he and his council has been as we try to move forward. What the technical study identified was a prefabricated bridge project that would be located where the primary sources of drainage coming on to Indian Canyon would be located, along with a critically important pinch points on Varner Road and on Date Palm, and for approximately $50 million, and a project that could be completed in 2 years, we could solve the issue of Indian Canyon. To solve both Indian Canyon and Gene Autry, we're looking at something closer to $80 to $90 million. But that compared to the $700 million estimates we're looking at for traditional bridges is an incredible improvement. The federal government has passed an infrastructure bill. There is funding that's being put together for projects such as these. In California, the governor appointed former Los Angeles Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa to be his infrastructure czar, to go around the state to tour and to identify the most critical projects. On behalf of Coachella Valley, I met privately with Mayor Villaraigosa in September. In December, he came to Palm Springs City Hall, to the Coachella Valley. He toured the areas that we were identifying, and specifically, along with Mayor Garner, he went to the Wash on Indian Canyon to see firsthand the kinds of issues that we are facing. So we are lobbying very heavily, and we are doing so in cooperation with cities throughout the Coachella Valley. In October of 2022, Tom Kirk, the executive director of CVAG, on behalf of CVAG and all of the cities in the Coachella Valley, sent a letter to Governor Newsom requesting $5 million for the design and environmental work that it would take to build the $50 million bridging projects that we are talking about. That letter is on the governor's desk, and we are hopeful that we will get the support of the governor. What we know is because of the catastrophic damage that has occurred throughout California because of these storms, the competition for funding is going to be intense. And we are going to do everything that we can here in Palm Springs, the Coachella Valley, and the Riverside County Transportation Commission to make sure that we get the funding that we need for the projects here in our community. For Vista Chino, we already have federal funding. There is a project that is in design stage right now. The design work is 50% completed. So we are on track to bridge Vistacino. It's a much smaller bridge that has to be built. There's $95 million in funding for bridging Vistacino. Ramon will be widened at the wash. We had some delays due to issues about acquiring all of the land that we needed to complete that project. That has been resolved, and we're moving forward. We are working with Palm Springs Police Department and Engineering Department to do whatever we can from a temporary standpoint to help traffic move more quickly in the community. Lastly, many individuals who are coming particularly to work in the morning from north of the freeway are using Tipton Road as an alternative. The left turn from Tipton Road on to South 111 is a very dangerous turn that people have to make. I encourage people, even though it takes a little bit longer, to go over to 111 and come down that route. But I did meet yesterday personally with the district director for Caltrans for San Bernardino and Riverside County to talk specifically about Tipton Road and the dangers that are there. That is roadway that is patrolled by the California Highway Patrol and is under the responsibility of Caltrans, but they are assigning teams to look specifically at Tipton and what can we do when we have emergencies that cause us to close Indian and Gene Autry so as to make that intersection safer. Lastly, we all understand how important it is to get from one place to another. When traffic backs up, the temptation to speed and to move very quickly is very real. Please be safe. We want you to get to where it is that you're trying to go, and it's much better to get there a little bit late or even 30 minutes or 60 minutes late than not to get there at all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Middleton. You've been giving so much attention to this issue for many years now, and we truly appreciate all of the efforts that you've made on behalf of our city. So our next item is acceptance of the agenda. The City Council will discuss the order of the agenda, may amend the order, add urgency items, note abstentions or no votes on consent calendar items, or request consent calendar items be removed for a separate discussion. I would like to entertain a motion for acceptance of the agenda. Are there any items that a staff or a council member would like removed from consent for a separate discussion or vote? Councilmember Middleton.
On item 1C, I need to recuse myself. There was a travel reimbursement check that I received that's in that packet.
Thank you. Councilmember Bernstein, or Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
On item 1B, it's the minutes from December 5th when I was not on council, so I would abstain from that. And I would like to pull item 1H.
1H.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember DeHart.
Abstain from 1B also.
Thank you. Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to pull item 1I. Thank you.
1I. Okay, it looks like we have items 1H and 1I pulled, a recusal on 1C, and 2 abstentions from our new council members on 1B. Do we have a motion to accept the consent calendar with those items noted?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor,
City Clerk, please conduct a vote.
Mayor, before we call the vote, if I could just make a correction on item 1F. That is.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. The purchase of turnout gear for the fire department, the amount of the purchase remains the same. It's just a change in the distribution of funding. So Fund 106,50035 will be 92,210, and the other fund will be 25,500. Same amount, just distribution for the record. Wanted to note that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe I jumped ahead with that vote, but I think we can still do it anyway, right? City Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. I have
Thank you.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Hostage,
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein,
Yes.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. So at this time, I invite City Attorney Jeff Ballinger to report on closed session.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the public, the City Council met in closed session earlier this afternoon to discuss the items that are listed on the agenda. There was no reportable action.
Thank you. The next item is public testimony. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on non-public hearing agenda items only. 2 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. You are asked to please begin your time by telling us what agenda item or items you are speaking about. Please note that testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of the public hearing, and general public comment for subjects not on the agenda will be taken later in the evening. City Clerk, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. First speaker is Michael Joseph Pickens.
Michael Joseph Pitkin, regarding all allocations and grants, I ask that every Palm Springs City Council allocation have a legal clause that no funding can be spent promoting any variation of hardcore hip-hop or gangsta rap speech. New Gavin Newsom law requires any and all sexting or adult pictures or languages can't be emailed, text, or other electronic delivery unless both parties consent. As this body supports Boys and Girls Club, I went to Indio site Thanksgiving. There were 3 teams playing soccer, 1 adult and 2 teams of 10 to 13-year-olds. The children took a huge speaker out on the field and played explicit hardcore hip-hop gangster rap music lyrics, and I quote, "Nigger fucking bitch," was blasting across the entire city of Indio. Rappers say appropriation by black youth transforms it into a positive appellation. I support any consenting adult activity in the privacy of one's own home. I do not support nor consent to adults and government bodies appropriating funding to promote using explicit word porn with children and explicit gang speech in the general public spaces. The music industry needs to advance humanity by self-regulating itself. Such explicit adult music lyrics should be federally regulated for ages 21 plus, like all vices that impact the 6 senses: sight, taste, smell, hearing, touch, and the power of perception or the spirit. Black, Hispanic, and indigenous gangs can speak explicit hardcore hip-hop, mafiosa rap, gangster rap, and narco speech to whites, but the moment a white speaks the same in return, they are threatened. This is a double standard. This is not political statement of artistic equity and racial justice. African-American Pennsylvania C. Dolores Tucker called this music genre sexually explicit, and misogynistic lyrics are pornographic filth. I protest and do not consent, one, for all the black children and children everywhere.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next speaker is David Feltman. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. I'm not sure which screen to look at. Hi, everybody up there. David Feltman, Palm Springs. My comments are going to be a little more dull. Sorry. I am here to speak about item 3A, which is about the committees, the subcommittees, and all of that. I'm hoping that at the end of my comments, two of you will leap to your feet and volunteer for what I'm going to suggest. And that is, I was looking at this extensive spreadsheet and hoping that I would see a committee on public works and capital projects. This is something that I've spent some time in the last month or so having conversations with, I would just say, a range of civically involved people. And to a person, I would say it's accurate to say that accessibility to information about the status of the expenditures on capital projects in particular is not really there. I looked at the budget again today. It's for capital projects alone, it's $88 million, a significant amount of money for our city for things that our citizens and our tourists touch, feel, and hear and see every day. I'm hoping that you will add a standing committee that will create that oversight and transparency that will be really important to moving these projects forward in a way that everybody can understand what's actually happening with the expenditure of these funds. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is online, David Murphy.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 2 minutes.
Okay. I'm David Murphy and a resident of Palm Springs and also a member of the Community Partnership on Homelessness. First, I want to acknowledge the progress made in 2022 by the county and city in accessing federal and state funds to expand permanent supportive housing, subsidized housing, mental health care capacity, and of course the Navigation Center. Today, we offer our reluctant support for the temporary expansion of the Access Center as an emergency overnight shelter during January and February. We all agree that unhoused people need a safe place to sleep that is warm in the winter and cool in the summer. Our support is conditional because the Access Center was presented to the public as being a daytime drop-in center, not an overnight shelter. We voiced our concerns about the location from the very beginning, given its proximity to the airport, but here we are. In addition to the Navigation Center, which we understand is not intended to serve as an overnight shelter, we implore the county and city officials to create a more permanent, modest, overnight accommodation for unhoused people. Dodging this county-level responsibility because it falls outside of the, quote, housing first philosophy is civically irresponsible. Every year, there is a haphazard scramble to create, quote, emergency overnight shelter beds. We can do better. Is there anyone on the city council willing to raise your hand and volunteer for an active leadership role in this matter? Work with county officials and other cities, maybe even exert pressure on Cathedral City with the county to share the burden with Palm Springs. Thank you.
We have no other speakers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next items we will be addressing are 1H and 1I. Do we have a staff report for 1H? You know what? There we go.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to confirm 1H is the asphalt art.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, it is exactly as the title would make you think. Asphalt art is creating artwork on street surfaces. And there are examples of asphalt art in the staff report on pages 4 through 6. And the proposed locations for this particular asphalt art project are in front of the James O. Jesse Highland Unity Center. And the final location is intended to be selected in conjunction with the Desert Highlands community, the Desert Highlands Gateway Estates Community Action Association, for our recommendation to the City Council. And the Public Arts Commission is requesting approval to fund an asphalt art project in the amount of $20,000. So with the public arts funds, it is a little different. The Public Arts Commission wanted to get approval of the funding first, and then use that approved amount to solicit artists and find projects that fit within that budget. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from council or comments from council?
I just have the reasons I pulled it. So, first of all, I just want to clarify, I get a question a lot that the public arts money is from developers and earmarked for public arts, so it can't be used for other things. And I love this project, I love public art. So what I wanted to mention is that we've had a couple asphalt street art projects. We had the rainbow on Palm Canyon at Amato and the rainbow on Arenas. Both, especially the one on Arenas, faded very quickly, and so I know that they listed different forms of art materials that can use, and Jay was nice enough to provide me with a huge report of different types of materials, and I just wanted to make sure that this was that the materials used would last. They say 3 to 5 years, at least more than a few months, and so that we don't create this beautiful art that starts looking terrible in a month or two. I don't know exactly which material is the best, and there was a number of them. I don't think it has to be permanent. It's something that lasts a while. But a comment and my question, if we make sure that happens.
Yes, we can include that in the call for artists to use the more durable paints or materials. Examples of that are commercial grade driveway paint, which is shown to have a life expectancy of 3 years. Acrylic traffic paint seems to be mixed between 1 and 3 years. And thermoplastics tend to be the longest lasting materials, but the process is a little more complicated as it requires shaving off a portion of the street and then inlaying the thermoplastics into that portion that was shaved off. So maybe a slightly more expensive option, but Council, if that's the desire to have it last longer, and I think that would be everyone's desire, that's can be incorporated into the call for artists.
Thank you. Councilmember Holstich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Mayor Pro Tem for bringing up that important point. Really appreciate that. I think it's really important to consider. I'd also, to that point, love to have staff consider, I'm not sure if it's the artist's job, but like a maintenance plan, right? Like making sure it's included, what is the timeline for this, and what's the maintenance plan so that it doesn't start to look like some of our rainbow crosswalks have unfortunately deteriorated it. We don't want any art looking like that in the city of Palm Springs. So I wanted to support that and also ask if a maintenance plan of some sort could be included by staff when they're brought forward. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember Holstich. Is that, go ahead, Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make sure that that it's not a recommendation of materials, but something that is as durable as the thermoplastics or better is used. Even though the rainbow crossings were intended to be temporary and not last well beyond the Pride events, this is a piece of art that is intended to last several years. So I think we need to make that as a requirement that the material used to make the project is going to be that thermoplastic or better, so we can ensure ourselves we're not fading in just a year or so. Thank you.
Thank you. I've heard a few different things being mentioned. Councilmember or Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein, did you have a motion that you wanted to put forward on this?
Yeah, I'm I'm not sure, the thermoplastics might be a very difficult process, but I motion to approve, provided that there's a material that we're sure will last at least a few years.
Thank
And
you.
there's a maintenance agreement along with that.
Thank you. I'll second the motion.
Great, thank you. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein and a second by Councilmember Holstage. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein,
Yes.
Councilmember Hostage,
Yes.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton,
Councilmember Middleton, you're on mute.
My apology. Aye.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes,
Motion passes 5-0.
wonderful. Thank you so much. The next item that we have is item 1I, which is the contract amendment for a temporary overnight shelter services in the amount of $105,464. Can we have a staff report?
Thank you, Mayor. It is cold and wet outside, and we do know that the County of Riverside is operating 11 emergency shelters throughout the county, but only 3 are in the Coachella Valley, and none of them are very close to Palm Springs. And addressing these conditions, staff worked with Martha's Village and Kitchen to expand the agreement we have at the Access Center and to include temporary overnight shelter for approximately 15 individuals, 7 days a week. And so this request is to increase their contract by $105,484 so they could operate the additional hours, have additional staff and additional security on site for this 2-month operation. And the temporary services would run through February 28th of 2023. The hours for the overnight shelter are from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. And if you have questions, I am available to answer.
Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to city staff for bringing this forward and ensuring that we filled the gaps left over by the county for not providing emergency shelter, overnight shelter near or even accessible from the city of Palm Springs. So really appreciate staff and Martha's Village and Kitchen again and again stepping up to do the hard work to provide for unsheltered residents. So thank you to all of our residents who emailed in and asked for this. Thank you for that pressure and for staff for executing it. Jay, I just have a question or two. We got comments tonight that this location would be a drop-in center, but can you address that we've used this as an overnight shelter before and sort of detail that?
Yes, this location had previously been used as an emergency overnight shelter and was operated by Coachella Valley Rescue Mission. And this was in late 2019, early 2020. But when COVID came around, the site was a little too small to serve the 30 to 40 clients that Coachella Valley Rescue Mission was seeing each night. And so the operations were then moved over to the, I believe it was the Palm Springs High School at the time, which they were able to utilize the gymnasium there, which had more space to spread out. So it had been used in this capacity in the past. And as it is now, it's for approximately 15 individuals.
Thanks, Jay. Do you think that's enough, or how was that number picked? Is there a way to provide more funding to be able to house more individuals? How do we better address the need, or are people being, coming in and then being directed to Martha's and their other shelters and services? And I'm also interested in if people are being directed into housing from that location.
Well, this is the drop-in center, so they have the case management and housing resources there during the daytime. So those are the same clientele that may be utilizing the overnight facilities. In terms of adding more beds, I did ask Martha's Village and Kitchen if that was at all possible. And the trouble they had was with the staffing. They really needed to know how long the city would want this operation to go for, because they would, at that point, have to hire more staff. And so it kind of triggers knowing if it's going to be an extended, longer-term operation where they could hire more staff and make the numbers work. But if it's not going to be much longer, then they would be operating at a pretty thinly staffed operation.
Got it. Thank you. Will our navigation center, it won't be open by next winter, right? So we'll have to come up with a plan to also do this again next winter?
That's very likely.
Thanks. So the public comment was right. The reason why we scramble every winter really to provide services, when Roy's closed, the county really left no adequate shelter or replacement for those Roy's shelter beds. And so we have scrambled every year, and it really is a matter of funding. The county generously funded overnight shelter the last few years, but was unable to do that again this year. And so really we just need to find, or we need to just budget as a city council, an annual cost for this, knowing that our residents want to provide overnight shelter to people in extreme winter conditions. So I just flagging that for the community and for the council. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve this item, move staff recommendation, and see if there's any further discussion from council. Thank you to staff for doing this.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any discussion by council? Seeing none, City Clerk, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Hostich,
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton,
Aye.
Councilmember DeHart,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein,
Yes.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much. We are now moving on to our public hearings. The next item is item 2A, a public hearing for a proposed ordinances adopting and amending the 2022 California Building Standards Code, the 2022 California Fire Code, the 2022 California Building Code, Residential Code, the Plumbing Code, Mechanical Code, Electrical Code, Green Building Standards Code, Energy Code, and Existing Building Code, Historical Building Code, and International Property Maintenance Code. That's quite a few. Can we please have the staff report?
Madam Mayor and members of council, this is an item that you heard back on December the 5th, and I'm going to apologize for the benefit of our two new council members. I'm going to go through the entire presentation again, just so that we have everyone with the same information in terms of what is being done. And thank you, Mayor, for reading off all of the codes that are being adopted as part of this process. In terms of background on the building code update, the codes are updated every 3 years. And so for that reason, we as a local municipality need to then adopt the new California Building Standards codes with their updated amendments. The process for this is a little bit different than our standard adoption process. As I had mentioned, we had a legislative item on this topic on December the 5th. It was introduced for first reading at that point in time, and then the code requires us to have a public hearing at second reading of the ordinances. And so that's where we are this evening in terms of the process. If adopted by the City Council, these codes will then become effective locally on February the 12th. In terms of the amendments themselves, they're very straightforward. Again, they've been through a process at the state level to include revisions and amendments. However, local municipalities are given the opportunity to impose more restrictive standards where it might be necessary based on local conditions. Where we do adopt alternate standards or more restrictive standards, we include them in future updates as well. So for example, in 2019, we had a number of amendments to the 2019 code relative to requiring air conditioning for all residential, as well as standards for our wildfire risk areas in the hills surrounding our residential development. Those amendments that were adopted in 2019 are carried forward for this cycle as well. The only amendments that we're proposing this year are relative to the fire code. And one of the things that is being proposed is that we require strobe switches and NOx electric switches for developments that have automated vehicle gates. This is being adopted to improve public safety, to cut down response times to those developments or those commercial properties that do have vehicular gates. And so that is the only amendment that we're proposing with this cycle. There are some future actions that we hope to bring forward in the first quarter of 2023. One of the things that we've had come up recently is questions about our waiver process for grease interceptors that are typically required for restaurants. What we'll be bringing forward is procedures and criteria that staff may consider when we receive requests from the requirement for a grease interceptor. In addition, the Sustainability Commission has been working on REACH codes, and by using the term REACH code, what that means is more restrictive requirements for commercial new construction and for residential buildings that were built before 2011. The intent of bringing forward these codes is to increase our energy efficiency here in the city of Palm Springs and to help us meet our sustainability goals relative to curbing greenhouse gas emissions. And so these are three things that we anticipate bringing forward to the City Council very quickly that will augment our building code update that we're considering this evening. At the City Council meeting on December the 5th, City Council requested that we put forth additional notification about the updates to the building code. Building and Safety Department has prepared a web page with information on the update that we're just getting ready to launch. And then also we've prepared a letter that we will send to housing providers as well as housing agencies relative to our local amendment for the provision of air conditioning for our residential units. Something that's very important for our residents, especially those who are in our affordable housing projects. And so with that, we are carrying forward with the direction that was provided by City Council at the December 5th meeting. With that, that concludes my presentation to you. Staff is here to answer any questions you might have. This is a public hearing, and so we will invite public testimony. I just want to note that we have Jason Loya, our acting fire chief, and Taylor Teeple, our fire marshal, who worked on these amendments here in the audience to answer any questions you might have. With that, Madam Mayor, I turn that back to you.
Thank you so much, Glenn, for that staff report. From council members, do you have any questions for staff prior to us opening the public hearing? Okay. Councilmember DeHart.
Flynn, can we clarify that the strobe lights on the security gates are not, this isn't applying to residential?
Chief Loya, if I could have you come up.
Good evening, council and staff. That is correct. Yeah, it will apply to residential gates as well.
Can we have just a slight more clarification? When you mean residential gates, are you talking about somebody that has a gate in front of their, to wall off their driveway?
Yeah, this is referring to housing complexes.
But not individual houses?
Not individual, correct.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Any other
Thank you.
any other questions? Okay, seeing none. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing. The public is invited to speak on this public hearing for up to 2 minutes. City Clerk, do we have any registered speakers?
We have no registered speakers, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing no speakers, the public hearing is now closed. Is there any additional discussions or questions from council on this item? Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yeah, I do want to say I know a lot of the building community finds the codes very difficult in the process in Palm Springs, but so I recognize that we have to work to make it easier. But when we talk about what's coming back with the energy reach codes and the grease trap, what I wanted to look at was for existing commercial properties as well as existing residential. And also I noticed sustainability was looking at solar requirements for commercial. And I'd like to look at that with the new code and with the new additions that you're going to have in the first quarter. And then lastly, and this may be something that's particularly knowledgeable in the business community, but the dumpsters in our city, if anybody has looked behind buildings, there's a vast difference in them. Some of them are covered and locked and clean and neat, and there's no homeless and there's no fires, and other ones are open and there's a lot of problems or health hazards. There's fires, there's some of them don't have proper recycling. And so I'd like to look at that when we do the updates, I guess it was later in this quarter, to include that in some kind of code, even if there's some incentive from the city to help make that happen. And if anybody wants to see what a really good dumpster looks like, go behind Capture Plaza and look at those dumpsters.
Thank you. Do we have comments from anyone else? Okay, I do actually have a question for you, Flynn, now that I think about it. For the grease interceptors, can you just give the public a little bit more information about that waiver process? And I think what came up most recently was the size of them. So can you talk about the changes there?
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Historically, grease interceptors have been required for restaurants where there is the productions of oils, greases, and fats in discharge from either washing dishes or in sinks and things like that. What it does is it helps to preserve our water system and our sewage system by having the grease interceptors. The requirements have become more stringent so that in addition to restaurants, even facilities such as coffee shops, like Starbucks, for example, have been required to provide grease interceptors, even though the small amount of fats, oil, and greases that they have are relatively minimal compared to a restaurant. There has typically been a process for waivers from these requirements based on the specific menu of a restaurant or a coffee shop. However, it's not codified, and so it is just based on the review by our building official. And so what we'd like to do is to make the process more predictable and have criteria that businesses would then be able to evaluate whether or not a grease interceptor has been required. As you're aware, there have been a couple of articles in the newspaper about businesses that were required to provide grease interceptors and confusion over that requirement and requests for waivers. And so again, the intent of bringing this forward to City Council is to provide clarity on the process and specific criteria that we use to evaluate those waivers.
Thank you so much, Glenn. And would that include the size of the grease interceptor?
Yes, we would probably have specifics on the interceptors as well.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Great, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein and a second by Councilmember Middleton. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember DeHart.
Yes.
Councilmember Hostich.
Yes.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
City Clerk, I believe you need to read the ordinance title.
I think we read it the first time. Okay. Proposed ordinance adopting and amending the 2022 California Building Standards Code, Title 24, the California Code of Regulations, the 2022 California Fire Code, the 2022 California Building Code, the 2022 California Residential Code, the 2022 California Plumbing Code, the 2022 California Mechanical Code, the 2022 California Electrical Code, the 2022 California Green Building Standards Code, the 2022 California Energy Code, the 2022 California Existing Building Code, the 2022 California Historical Building Code, and adopting and amending the 2021 International Property Maintenance Code.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is item 3A, review and make appointments to City Council subcommittees, city representatives to projects, liaisons, well, no more liaisons to city commissions and boards, but representatives to external organizations. May we have a staff report, please?
Honorable Mayor and Council Member, the review is to make appointments to City Council subcommittees, city representatives to projects, liaison to city commissions and boards, and representative to external organization. At this time, the staff is requesting that you review the roster and please indicate if the subcommittees, liaison, ad hoc, or standing committees have completed their work and may be removed from the roster. In addition, please note that if the ad hoc subcommittee is reauthorized, staff will set a one-year expiration date unless otherwise directed by the council. We have noticed that on this report, you'll find some of the committees, we did just a total listing of all committees. Some of them have not, they've been removed. So we're just waiting on some directions from you to kind of update this list. So it's lengthy and it's thorough, but we do want to get your input, and with your directions, we will resubmit a updated list.
Thank you so much, City Clerk. So I'm going to give a little bit of context to this for new council members and to remind all of us about what we decided in the past. In the past, we did away with with many of our subcommittees and with liaisons to commissions because that process was not working for us. Now, if this council wants to address those again, we can. I also sent around recommendations based on how everyone ranked their interest in external commissions and what I thought might work for some of you if you did not rank. I do want to make note that with the homelessness committee, I did not have Councilmember Holstage's opinion on whether or not she'd like to continue on that committee. So I do want to just flag that since her name was not listed on what was sent around. It's my recommendation that we move forward and discuss these external committee appointments first, and then we can open up discussion after we're done with those appointments to whether or not we want to have liaisons again to commissions. So with that, I think I'd like to propose that if you have something that if you're seeing something on this list that you disagree with, either you do not want to serve on that commission or you want to and you're not listed, to flag that, and then we can have a discussion on those items. That way we do not have to discuss any appointments that are not contested. Would anyone like to begin? Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I'd like to add my name as the second for the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership. And
Great.
also,
and just go ahead.
As also a second behind Councilmember Middleton on Sunline Transit.
And for the public, the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership does not have a second listed at this moment. So council, is there any objection to Councilmember DeHart being listed as the second? Okay. And then the next one, pardon me, for the Sunline And that
Yes.
also does not have anyone listed. Does council have any objection? Okay, great. Thank you. I'll note that.
So you're so sorry. So you're reading off of the mayor's recommendation, is that right?
Yes,
Okay. Does the public have access to that, or do we need to put it on the screen?
I can put it on the screen.
Thank you. Sorry, Madam Mayor.
No, it's a good recommendation.
Us visual people need to see it.
Yes,
To discuss
I agree.
it.
Just one moment.
I was also looking at the other list as you were going, so I just want to confirm what we just did.
Absolutely. All right, so now everyone can see this. This is our list.
Great job. I think you're also the first mayor to use this feature of Zoom successfully. I did not. So congratulations to you.
Is there someone that would like to make another comment about this current proposal? Councilmember Middleton.
If no one else is interested, I would be open to serving as the alternate for Coachella Valley Mountain Conservancy.
Seeing no objection, there you go. Just to make a note here, there's a couple of blank spots. The Eastern Riverside County Interoperable Communications Authority does not have a representative. Those meetings are the second Thursday at 4 p.m. I'm not sure which council member previously had that position, but are those meetings remote? Does anyone know?
Those are remote meetings, and no offense intended, they've typically been the mayor who serves.
I'm happy to do that.
And I'm happy to continue as the alternate.
Great.
Thank you. And I apologize to the committee and the community. I was out of the office and wasn't able to do my responses. And just to note for the record, my responses are not my responses. I think staff noted them in the staff report, which is public, just what I was previously. So even there's like, I'm currently recused on vacation rentals. There's a 1 on vacation rental. I didn't do that. If we could correct that. And it's always awkward when we publish these because they're just like a snapshot moment in time. So just to be clear, so apologize for that to complicate the process. I am not on this list for an external committee. I did what our 2 new council members are doing right now when I was first elected, as I signed up for all of the things in 2017. And I've done a lot of external work, including being the chair of CVAG on behalf of the city of Palm Springs. So I'm just sitting here looking at all of your recommendations and requests, seeing if there's a place that I fit in that I would be most useful. So just give me a moment as that's what I'm doing right now. I know, Mayor, you're saying, is there a spot for me here that I want? And I'm just looking at it to see, where I could fit based on what's blank.
And Councilmember Holstage, feel free to state if you want to be in a position that someone is already listed in. These are just recommendations and following along with discussions that I've had in the past with all of you about what you might be interested in. But I think we all are flexible on who serves.
Yeah, I've been in the past, I've been interested in DCE. I've been interested in the Mountains Conservancy. I currently serve and have served as the chair of the CVAG Homelessness Committee. I've done that for a few years now, so I am open to leaving that position for the city and opening it up for new leadership. Traditionally, we've always had strong leadership on that committee, typically serving as chair or vice chair, or, Palm Springs has really led the way on homelessness, so that spot is important to me. I know Ginny Folk had done it previously too. So those are the ones that I'm interested in.
I
Great.
think I'm on the. Sorry,
I'm
Go,
sorry.
go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd just say it was moving around. I can see. So the homeless this is where I am as the alternate. Should look and
Yes,
see.
you're currently listed as the alternate.
Yeah, if Councilmember Holstich would like to do it, I'm happy. She has a lot of experience. I don't know if she wants to.
Yeah,
Councilmember-
I'm listed as the primary, and I'm happy to have Councilmember Holstich continue in that role.
Councilmember Holstich, do you have thoughts?
Thank you. So that was for homelessness, and then Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein said which one?
Homelessness as
That was
well.
one I was talking about as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to continue on in that role. I think that makes the most sense.
And if Councilmember DeHart wanted to be the alternate.
No, I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
And
Great.
I certainly am willing to defer to Councilmember Holstich as the alternate on the Mountain Conservancy.
Either way works for me. I don't find the alternates typically used. So thank you I appreciate that. Either way works. I'm a bad alternate is what I'm trying to say.
Councilmember Holstich, I will say that I listed for the Coachella Valley's Conservation Commission. There wasn't strong preferences there, and I listed Councilmember DeHart. But if you were interested in that one, I get the sense he wouldn't object.
Councilmember, do you have a preference in terms of, I see you're listed for Coachella Valley Conservation, for Coachella Valley Mountains, for homelessness, I think a few others. Are there your top?
We can, if you'd like to take Coachella Valley Mountains, we can pull me from that position and have Councilmember Holstich take Coachella Valley Mountains. That would be good.
That'd be great. I would love to do that. And if you're interested in homelessness and stepping into that leadership role for the region, I'm happy to support that as well. I know this process, welcome to your first meeting, and you have to talk openly about all of these positions, and it's kind of an awkward place to be for these appointments. But yeah, happy to support you if you have a strong preference for that.
Jeffrey and I are also on Main Street. Do you want to go to Main Street?
I've been to Main Street many times.
Any other comments on this proposal?
No, I think it's.
Do we haven't? Does Councilmember Holstich have enough?
I believe Councilmember Holstich wanted to step back a bit. Is that my memory?
I have a lot. I've always seen this as a balance between external and internal. So when I've been in your shoes, I've balanced it that way. And so, yeah, I've had a strong focus on external, and now I want to focus more on internal.
Great. All right.
Compliment the mayor for the work that she did in putting this list together. This is not easy to do, and thank you.
Thank all of you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, which may be the harder part. I guess maybe turning it off is the harder part.
At the bottom, you see stop. Oh, the very top.
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right. So we have that list. I'm going to save it and make sure our city clerk gets that. Now, the next, there are two standing committees. We did not discuss those, but those have typically, the finance committee is the mayor and the mayor pro tem. So that's, unless there's an objection to that, I recommend that we continue that trend. Then there is a public integrity standing committee, and I cannot remember, Councilmember Middleton and Holstage, if we sunsetted that one or not. Do you remember?
I don't recall if we've sunsetted it. There are some small issues that arise, but it's not nearly the time crunch that it previously has been. I'd have to defer to the city attorney as to whether or not there's some issues that come up where we need to have the public integrity to approve certain processes. I've been on it pretty much since I've been on city council. I'm happy to continue, and I am happy to defer.
Thank you. And I think I currently have Councilmembers Middleton and Holstage listed for that.
Can we does staff have a report about the current status? Or can you get that to us?
We can get that to you.
Thank you. So, Madam Mayor, so you took what staff published is the external and then the internal liaisons. And so just clarify to me, because we've done this a few times now. We, like you said, have ping-ponged from having subcommittees and liaisons and just trying to get a handle on all of the city work and the role of the council and role of staff. So can you so you're recommending not moving forward with the rest of the liaisons on the staff report list?
The last time that we did this, we decided that we would no longer have the liaisons, and then we got rid of a good amount of subcommittees.
Right.
And so at this time, the only things that we actually have listed as active in committees are the external organizations and finance, public integrity, and then the board and commission interviews liaisons. And those are the people who interview for our commissions and do the appointments, which we rotate every year. So we do not currently have anyone scheduled to be a liaison to a commission or any subcommittee, any currently active subcommittees. Now, if we want to create ones or want to bring some back, we can. So that's what's on the table now, is if we would like that to happen. So Councilmember DeHart.
Yeah, I'd like to throw my hand up to serve as the liaison for the Airport Commission and continue a position of serving as a liaison for the Public Arts Commission.
Okay, so then you're recommending that we go back to having liaisons, because we currently do not have liaisons to commissions.
I'm offering myself to serve as a liaison on those two.
Only on those two. Okay. Yeah. Before we discuss further, Councilmember Bernstein.
So first of all, in terms of the subcommittees, I would like to see some incarnation of the Business Retention and Development Subcommittee come back. I will tell you, in the business world, when Councilmembers Holstage and Coors or mayors, as they were at the time, it was extremely productive and useful. And there was, interesting things from getting Fine Food Bank there to creating a Uniquely Palm Springs campaign. And I don't know how all the other ones were, but this one seemed to actually get things done and accomplished and serve as a great forum for the business community. So I would like to see that. I would like to see liaisons for commissions and boards. And I realize the time drain, especially looking at this long list. And I don't think it requires everybody necessarily have to attend on a monthly basis. Maybe it's quarterly, and at least have some connection with the chair. As the chair of Measure J, it was frustrating not to know who to talk to when there was issues, and I just think it would streamline things a lot. And I think there's a lot of valuable work done on the commissions. There's a lot of very intelligent people who are volunteering to help the city, and if they can have some kind of open communication with a council member and have that council member attend at least quarterly, let's say, it goes a lot towards increasing community, support and confidence that it's worth their while to help the city. And I have several, that I would be willing to work with, but I don't know if we want to choose that yet or not. I'm happy to say, or we can wait until everybody else comments.
Let's wait to hear the other two comments and then we'll go back, but thank you. Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might propose that we table this conversation with having a new city manager. So when we had David Reddy as city manager, we had the subcommittee form of organization. And as you can imagine and saw, you both were involved. It became very, very burdensome because we had so many and it was requiring so much. We chose to move away from the liaisons to the commissions because they did end up becoming, there's risk and reward in that. Having a council member who doesn't have staff be their liaison, then they're, very frustrated that the council member isn't there every time. That was not a successful model. The council at that time decided. That doesn't mean we can't decide that. And I would, I'm happy to discuss it. And then with Justin as the new city manager, we really wanted to move to, the council decided at the time to move to more of a community work group setting where we don't have clearly established commissions, but we take on issues together. We tried that with vacation rentals. That was, I think, not a well-formed group. And so we didn't get great results, in my opinion, because it wasn't diverse. There was, a lot of gaps in that. But anyway, I think that my perspective being on council for 5 years and ping-ponging to different models is that we should do this in coordination with the new city manager to understand what their thinking is about how council and staff and all of us together can row in the same direction. And I think it might be early to set that and then have them come in. I mean, if council thinks, there are key issues that are very, very important to us, like I was thinking, sustainability, we don't have a subcommittee or liaison to. We heard Parks and Rec or capital improvement, liaison or city works projects, right? Like we could really come up with, here are the key priorities for council. And when we did that with the last council, we noticed that we did not have council subcommittees or council liaisons to some of the issues that are most important to council. So we haven't done that as a group, but maybe that is something we could set aside with the new city manager if that's what council wants to do. Otherwise, we can do that tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Holstage. Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you. I'm certainly open to taking some time and making sure that we get this right. Let me take them one at a time. When it comes to liaisons to the commissions, we did struggle with that at different times. Part of that was because we had members of council who thought that was a really good idea and others that didn't. So there was not an even distribution of work. But over the last year, what has become readily apparent, and it certainly was apparent when we had the meeting with all of our boards and commissions, is the quality of the communication between city council and our commissions needs to improve. They were very clear and frank with us that that needs to happen. And I think a liaison would be a good first step. We've got some work we need to do during the course of this year. I hope to assess what's working and what's not working with our boards and commissions, and having that liaison so that there's constant regular communication, I think would be very helpful. And if we decide to go that route, I am certainly ready to participate. There's a couple that I would identify that I would volunteer for, but I would want to make sure that everything's covered. When it comes to subcommittees, I think our decision to end the subcommittees was the right decision. It had become very bureaucratic, and we were just giving ourselves responsibility and not really following through with it. But as Councilmember Bernstein said, what was essentially an ad hoc committee of Councilmember Holstage and Councilmember Coors to address business retention issues turned out to be very successful. And I think the lesson there is that we should assign committees to do work when we've got a specific task that we need them to do. And there should be, this shouldn't be permanent. It should be something that we assign a committee on council to do something, finish it, and then conclude.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is that there's interest in bringing back liaisons, but how we do that needs further discussion and an interest in possibly waiting for the new city manager, or at least for a larger discussion about what our goals and strategic plan is as a new council. If everyone agrees with that sentiment, then my recommendation is that we vote to approve these external organizations, and then we hold off and see how things move forward with our city manager's search before we open up discussion for any ad hoc committees that we may need to form or any liaisons for commissions. Is there any, Mayor Pro Tem?
I that makes sense to wait for the city manager to do it. What I would just want to know is for the commissions, because they're still operating now, and that they haven't had a liaison for a while. And I was at that meeting in June and talked to other commissioners, and it was very unfortunate. Still, I know people who have left the commissions because they didn't feel like they had any contact or with anybody. So I don't know whether it's there can be an informal or a temporary liaison, or they can have someone they could talk to. But again, I know when I was at Measure J, I would go to all of City Council with an issue, and no one. I wasn't really sure who would actually act on it, and I don't think City Council, knew it was their role to do it anyway. So it was sort of a problem. And I would like to see that we have some kind of outreach to these commissions that are continuing to do the work. And I don't know whether that's a temporary liaison, whether it's whether they can request to speak with someone with the assistant city manager until they have this set up or something. But something should be done so that they're not sort of left hanging, in my view.
Thank you. Councilmember Holstage, did you have a response?
Yeah, and some of this, just to highlight what we discussed before in depth, is kind of a conversation about what's staff work and what's council work. And that's the transition that this council has been in, because we had a very council work driven agenda. And then we tried to reel in a bit and be more staff directed. And so technically, under the very staff directed system, right, the staff is the liaison and the professional liaison to the city channels. I mean, I get that because I ran for city council because I was on a commission and felt with now Councilmember DeHart, and sort of felt like, I wasn't getting anywhere. And so I decided to run for council, right? So I feel that frustration too. We just also want to think through and analyze the impact on staff, because then it was also, we were finding, requiring a lot of staff resources. If you have the mayor or a council member at commission meetings, right? That's a lot more pressure on staff. So I'm not trying to minimize, because I absolutely agree that the system is broken and there's a lack of communication, but I would just like to involve staff in that conversation about staffing and capacity and, what can be driven. Because we've also had problems where that we've had commissions taking stands against council. We've had commissions going rogue. We've had commissions doing, all kinds of things. And so, there's having a liaison has some problems as well if a council member is lobbying that commission. So I just think it is like I appreciate that it's an urgent issue and I'd love to address it and love to know if staff has recommendations. But I do want to just consider staff capacity before we assign every commission a council member again. I didn't enjoy being in that role because I felt like I wasn't the right person for them. It was really, they needed staff to get them press or to get them on to fix the website or Measure J signs or XYZ. And it was almost like stepping in a staff role. And then, you know, then you become the target too, right? If they're not getting what they need. So I'm sort of opposed to that liaison. That's why I wanted to move away from it, but I'm really open to building a system that works.
Mayor,
Thank you. Go ahead, Teresa.
Thank you. I just wanted to share, I'd be happy to meet with any commissions that feel like they need access to staff and further direction as a liaison during this interim. And we can bring something back during your visioning and study session that we'll be having. We do have some further dialogue to have about committees, commissions, and boards, some work that we started last year that we do intend to bring back to you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. That's helpful. Councilmember Middleton, did you have a comment?
Clearly, one of the issues that we had the last time when we had liaisons is we were not all on the same page as council members as to whether or not this was something that was appropriate. But something that's clearly surfaced is we need to improve the communications that we have with our commissions. It may be an appropriate interim step before we have a full-fledged conversation to see and do this offline. What council members are willing to spend some time with a commission or commissions and have us identify which ones we would, sending it to the mayor. So that we can at least begin some conversation. And then as we get a city manager in place, we can come back and decide what's the model that works. And if it's only put your name in for those commissions that you would feel really comfortable being the interface with council and that commission for the next few months to help flesh out what are the issues they're facing.
Thank you, Councilmember Middleton. I think that's a great idea. I know that some of you already did provide numbers there. I think it would make sense to take a second look and just list the ones that you really want to do and not be too overeager, because remember, with all of these, and I say this remembering becoming a new council member, it's really easy to put too much on your plate. So just keep that in mind. It gets to be a lot very quickly. Okay, so with that said, it sounds like Teresa, as our acting city manager, is willing to meet with any commissions in the meantime, and we can offline spend a little bit more time on determining what our capacity is as a council to be liaisons prior to having a larger discussion. One thing we have not discussed yet is the board and commission interviews. Most recently, myself and former council member Jeff Pors were going to do the next round of interviews. I think it's important to have some continuity there, so I'd like to volunteer to continue that, but I would like to recommend that either Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein or Councilmember DeHart join me in that process so that you can see how these interviews go. Would one of you like to volunteer?
Can we split them? Is there any problem with that?
Yeah, you could do that too, actually. That's not a problem. Okay.
Does that make sense?
So,
I should ask Councilmember DeHart if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine to split it, but I'm drawn on why would we add more commissioners to commissions if we don't have guidance and direction, instruction for them. So I think I would not like to see another commissioner get into the position that they feel they're not getting they're spinning their wheels on the commission. So,
If I may, Mayor, council
Go
members,
ahead.
there are some commissions where we do have to have a minimum number in order to continue to function, and the functions are outlined. We do have a book that outlines the functions of the commissions, but if there are nuances that they have in their direction that they need clarification on, I'd be happy to help in the interim. But the ones that we're looking to appoint right now that you're doing interviews for are to meet our requirements.
Thank you, Teresa. That's really helpful. And that is one of the things that the former council directed, was for us to clarify the roles for all of our commissions. And that's something that staff is working on currently. So that's all in the process. And we are not overly packing our commissions at this point, right? So some of our commissions are quite large. We're not adding to those that are quite large. We're only adding to meet those requirements, like Teresa said. Okay, so are there any other comments on this? Just to sum us up, we are going to vote on the external commissions, as well as finance, public integrity, and board and commission interviews. That's the slate that we're approving. We are going to look again at which commissions we would like to be liaisons to. That information will be sent to me. And then we will further discuss this with a new city manager and with keeping in mind this council's strategic plan and vision for the next year. So that said, do we have a motion to approve the committees?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have Councilmember DeHart is motion to approve, and Councilmember Middleton is the second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember DeHart.
Yes.
Councilmember Middleton.
Aye.
Councilmember Hostich.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein.
Yes.
Mayor Gardner.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all so much. And I really want to thank all of council for going through this process and the public. I know it's a little bit messy and it can be a little bit confusing when we do this at the top of each year. But I'm glad that the recommendations worked out overall. We didn't have too many things to discuss. All right, the next item is public comment on non-agenda items. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on items of general interest within the subject matter of the city. Although the City Council values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the agenda. 2 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. City Clerk, can you please begin?
Our first speaker is Michael Joseph Pitkin. Two minutes.
Michael Joseph Pitkin, Riverside County District Attorney Law Enforcement Deterrence Program Complaint. Excerpts of Vendetta. Indio, Cal Jobs had sinking from Frankie Nuno 67 at gmail.com at the time of my sign up for job placement and unemployment account. 11/22/22 T22001238 rejected by Indio PD as no fraudulent activity. Letter to Police Chief Mike Washburn, no response. San Francisco, Rio Vista, Richard Bailey, is Alvin F. Adams, Department of Defense. LA, 2014, Barbara Boxer, LA FBI, expressed no interest, and black woman shouting sedition, sedition. LA LGBT Center, Jeffrey Goodman Special Care Clinic. My medical records were hacked by Trayvon Johnson and Deborah Randolph. MJP medical record page 164, 8/14/14. January 2014 to August 2016, Skid Row. Befriended black neighbors, Alexandria Hotel, hacked my Toshiba WiMAX Satellite A660 series laptop computer with baby boy, baby girl files I could not open. Year-and-a-half affair with Donald Byrd. He said he knew individuals who could remove the files. I agreed with the condition it be returned once I moved to Reno. That never happened. Years later, I found out he was Don Lemon of CNN. LaShawn Hara, or gossip, is my computer ended up in the hands of Joe Biden's son. Loss of first upper left molar via partial root canal without my consent. Reno, new Obama phone, black female opened my account, NV 100-4400-183, to her apartment, 4412 Baker Lane, apartment C, Reno, Nevada, 89509. She moved from Nevada to Santa Rosa.
Next speaker is online, Jason Costner.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Jason, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Frontier's fiber rollout activities represents the first time in decades that there is a major infrastructure upgrade throughout the city. In response, the city should hire more inspectors and update its policies, procedures, and communication practices in the Engineering and Public Works Department to give both staff and residents the tools, resources, and information they'll need going forward. Other cities in the Valley mandate daily contact with permitted project crews and hire additional staff to cope with anticipated volume of ongoing projects. This ensures that project crews are complying with permit provisions daily. This will be a new experience for many. There will be a learning curve for staff working with utilities on project scale that has not been seen in a long time. Residents are not accustomed to a 3-month occupation of work crews, daily disruptions, equipment, materials, blocked driveways, and property damage. Sidewalks will be impassable hazards for those who rely on them for mobility. They'll need to know how to schedule their activities and who to contact if there's an issue. The city needs to update the utility encroachment permit process to make sure large-scale utility rollouts like Frontier's Fiber to Home are as smooth as possible for everyone. Existing permits and procedures do not require the notification of residents who live along the right-of-way. Contractors are not required to tell residents or staff when construction will start and when it will end. Names of contractors and contact information are not publicly available or anywhere to be found on a public webpage. Frontier is currently performing work based on permits that were submitted over a year ago, and according to staff, contained out-of-date information. Other jurisdictions only approve open-ended permits for annual maintenance and not for large-scale projects. Public Works engineering staff should be enforcing existing provisions, including on-site crew supervision. Traffic control safety plans should be required by default. Liability insurance and construction schedules should not be discretionary and be made public information. Trusting that large utility companies will act in good faith within city boundaries without sufficient public oversight is not in anyone's best interest.
We have no further speakers.
Thank you, City Clerk. I appreciate that. The next item on our City Council agenda is City Council and City Manager requests and upcoming agenda development. I'd like to start us off, if no one minds. I wanted to just let you all know that we welcomed 13 new firefighters to Palm Springs Fire Department yesterday. I was there along with Councilmember Middleton and our acting city manager, Teresa Gallivan, as well as many members of our HR team, and of course, dozens of firefighters. It was a really nice ceremony, and we had lots of children that were there, even doing the pins for their fathers. And you know, for all the women out there or folks who are non-binary, you are welcome at our fire department too. So please, consider applying in the future. I also wanted to just thank everyone and all of their work on the Palm Springs International Film Festival. We are closing out the last weekend here. So if you have not had a chance to go see any of the movies, please do. I have seen a few now, and I cried during each one of them because I was so moved. So I hope that all of you are also having great experiences. And then finally, I wanted to just let everyone know that the Mayor's Book Club is going to be held on February 15th at 6:30 p.m. The first book is called The Color of Law. If you want to see a little bit more, you can go on my Facebook page or my Instagram. And then as soon as there is a location for the meeting, that will be announced. And as we get closer to the date, a Zoom link will also be published so that people can participate as they want. But because this is such a short meeting, I encourage my fellow council members to give council member comments. We end up skipping these a lot because it gets late. Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein, go ahead.
Yes, actually, Mayor, thank you. I wanted to second your congratulations to the film festival. Two of the most exciting things for me were that seeing all the celebrities, not just at the gala, but going to movies, celebrities and creative talent that are talking after the movies, that are meeting with the film goers. It's really something very special. And I know from the hospitality community that there's a lot of people in town who are just really enjoying going to the movies. And that's one good thing about having rainy weather, is it's something good to do. But also to I think it's 450 volunteers that work at the film festival. And these are really what make it work. I mean, there's a tremendous staff and movies and talent, but without those 450 volunteers, the film festival would not happen. So thank you to them. And the other thing I want to mention is that the Palm Springs Sister City Committee is moving forward. I've resigned from the board, but I am still working with them. The mayor of San Miguel de Allende and a contingent is coming here February 6th to 9th to sign an official agreement to get a tour of our city. And then hopefully that is the beginning of a long relationship with San Miguel de Allende. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Middleton.
Great. Well, Mayor, thank you for all of your work, and it was really a pleasure to be with you and all of the firefighters last evening. That's the largest class we've ever had, and anyone who wants to see something really good, it's seeing all of those proud families as in this case, it was their sons and fathers and brothers that were being pinned as new firefighters. On February 2nd at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then again on February 3rd at 8:30 in the morning at the Renaissance Hotel, and this is a public meeting, the Riverside County Transportation Commission will be meeting here in Palm Springs. Once every year we hold a meeting in a particular city, so I'm looking forward to being able to have Palm Springs as the host and invite anyone who has an interest in transportation issues to come out. They are public meetings, and it's a great opportunity to see some of the conversation that takes place on transportation issues. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember DeHart.
Yes, thank you. In addition to the accolades that have already been placed on the film festival, I certainly want to point out public safety and their role in the tremendous number of public safety officers that were at the convention center for the awards gala that was seen around the world. They did a fantastic job keeping our city safe, keeping all the visitors safe, and making for a flawless event. So thank you for that. I also want to pass on accolades as a few of our commissioners leave their posts on the commissions, and say thank you to Thomas Will, who's leaving the Airport Commission, Terry Andrade for her service on the Human Rights Commission, and Randy Evans for his service on the Sustainability Commission. Thanks to all of them for their service to the city.
Thank you. Any additional council member comments? No? All right. And now we are on to agenda development. Teresa, do you want to start us off?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If we could share the tentative upcoming meeting schedule, PSC TV. Mayor and council, do you have access to that? I'll go ahead and walk us through it. So at our next meeting, we presently have historic designation of Via Roma, a public hearing scheduled, approximately 15 minutes, vacation rental fee adoption public hearing, which could take up to an hour, we estimate. Desert Highlands lots disposition request for proposals would be under business and legislative activity. That potentially could take an hour. We have the adult business ordinance coming back under business and legislative agenda for approximately 30 minutes. We have the airport legitimate purpose ordinance being introduced. That may have some discussion under business and legislative. And then we have the vacation rental maps, which we're bringing back, an ordinance that was adopted at the end of last calendar year. This is just a clarification on areas outside and I see we're sharing that now, so you can also hopefully see that. I know it's a little bit small. Essentially, outside of consent, the items we have on the agenda look to be about 4 hours and 15 minutes worth of activity, plus the consent agenda. And then following that, at the beginning of February, we have a navigation center update. We have the airport master plan consultant agreement coming in front of you. And later in February, we'll be talking about the Dream Hotel, the sidewalk vending ordinance, and the rescission of the local emergency order. This will also fill up further as we get closer to those dates. That's where we are with the tentative upcoming meeting schedule. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. I'll leave this up just briefly so that everyone can see it. Do we have any comments on this upcoming list that's in front of us? Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you. I'm not quite clear what it is when it comes to vacation rental maps that council needs to weigh in on and decide at this point.
At this point, we need to adopt the maps for the vacation rentals that are not in an organized neighborhood. So we'll bring to you a resolution to adopt the map identifying those areas.
So this has no impact on any neighborhood that is organized.
Correct. It's just finding a way to identify the areas that are not in the organized neighborhoods.
All right, thank you.
My pleasure.
To clarify that, I think there is a potential that the council could choose to sort of attach the unincorporated, if you will, land to an adjacent neighborhood, but that's not necessarily a given, but you'll be given that opportunity at that meeting.
All right.
Thank you. Any other comments on this upcoming schedule?
Also,
Okay.
Mayor and
Go ahead.
Council, if I may, I'd also like to get a clarification I've just been made aware of on the calendar that was adopted earlier on the consent. We did have a conflict on July 27th, but a alternate date was not printed on that. So I just want to confirm with the council that your preference would be the Monday of that week or the Tuesday of that week, July 24th. If Monday is fine, I just want to put that on the record.
Yeah, I preferred earlier in the week, so Mondays work. Monday works.
Monday works for me. Either day works for me.
Monday's better.
That works. Monday works for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Holstage, did you want to? That's fine. Okay, great. Then I do want to raise a couple of requests. One is that it was brought to my attention that when there is construction going on our roads, there are not lanes blocked off for bikes or pedestrians if those are already existing in those streets. So for instance, if, let's see, Farrell were closed for construction in some areas, cars would have a workaround, but bikes would not be considered even though there is a bike lane there. I don't know if staff, if you can tell us, is that something that council needs to direct, or is that something that we could just, that staff can just do, which is just require that the construction crews also make some allowances for a bike or / pedestrian lane so that people are safe getting around?
Madam Mayor, based on your direction this evening, this is something that we can handle as administrative policy and doesn't require action by the City Council.
Great, thank you so much. And then the other thing I wanted to raise that we do need, I do need support from council is through the state of California, we can be designated a pro-housing city. Through conversations with staff, we've determined that we have 28 of the 30 points that we need to have the pro-housing designation. There are a few things that are going to be coming to us in terms of our accessory dwelling units that would get us to be above those 30 points. And so what I'm looking for right now is simply support from fellow council members to add to move forward in applying to be, or considering applying to be a pro-housing designated city. Is there support? Councilmember Holstage?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I initially emailed staff about this as well, and very much would like to see us be a pro-housing city. And so I know that Flynn responded that staff could bring back an analysis of what that would look like. So would love to support that. And thank you so much for making that request.
Thank you. Do we have a third?
I do. Yes.
Okay.
Just a clarification, this will be coming back for conversation that will actually be agendized.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that is exactly it. It's a little bit hard sometimes to make these requests, but these, and for the public as well, we're making requests for items to be put on our agenda and to be discussed. This is not us deciding if we would support these items. We're just supporting having them on our agenda, to make that clear. But we do require that we have support from a majority of council before something goes on the agenda list. The other two things I wanted to give the floor back to Councilmember DeHart and Mayor Pro Tem Bernstein, because you both pointed out a couple of things at our very first meeting, and we did not go through this process of making sure that there was interest by the rest of council. So if you want to repeat your items and see if there's interest, that would be great.
Yeah, if I may, my request was that when we do a mid-year budget review or an appropriate point, that we look at having allocating a percentage of vacation rental income to our affordable housing fund so that we have a sustainable monies going into that.
Councilmember Holstage?
Thank you so much. Thanks for bringing this up. I fully support it. I just wanted to ask staff, because I've requested that as well in the past. I know we've had some discussions about it. What do we need to bring back? Would it be just a discussion item about the ways to make that possible?
Yes, Mayor and Council, if there are three of you that want to see this item put on a future agenda, we can bring back an item to discuss it further with analysis. And I'd ask Deputy City Manager if there's anything else you want to add.
No, we'd be happy to bring this back for analysis.
Thank you. I'm happy to support it. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for requesting it and for doing that for your first request. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I would also support that, but I would like to broaden that a bit to say that I'm interested in how we would be allocating percentage of any funds for different projects, because that's something that we have discussed broadly in the past and haven't really dived into. So it would be interesting to know what we can do, what that would look like, so that when we get to our budget review, we're a little better informed and a little more strategic in our planning.
I'm sorry, Mayor, could you repeat that one more time?
Instead of only determining how we could allocate funds for housing, it would be how would we allocate any larger sums of money that come into the city to determine percentage for projects. So for instance, we discussed at the last budget meeting, should we have a percentage of funds that went to the library? Should we have a percentage of funds that go to X project? But we end up discussing them really quickly in our budget sessions, and we haven't really fleshed it out more. So if we're going to be discussing it regarding housing, could we discuss it more broadly as well, is the question.
It's all of
unless I'm
council.
confusing the question, unless I'm confusing what's being asked.
That can be very broad, I think. But we would do our best and bring it forward for discussion. Go ahead.
Councilmember Holstich, can you clarify for me? Maybe I'm getting it confused.
For me, it's a very specific request. I believe that vacation rentals and hotels obviously generate so much TOT upon which we rely, transit occupancy tax, but that they have impacts on the housing market and also our workforce and our housing and supply overall. And so to specifically and the problem that the city faces, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, if you have some to add as well, but the city faces the problem that we don't have redevelopment or a revenue source into our housing fund. That's why the city had to do $10 million as a lump sum from general fund. And so our problems would be solved in a way, though we would need to know the amounts, if we had a dedicated revenue stream for housing to mitigate the housing impacts of the hospitality TOT sector. So that was my thinking. I'm interested in what you're saying, like TUMP fees or other development fees, or at least like development allocations from projects to go to certain funds. But I think it should be wholly separate. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I think, so is it okay, Mayor?
That's fine, go ahead.
So where the discussion, I think, with library and parks also came up was with Measure J. And whether there was a percentage of those funds that would be dedicated each year towards parks. I think we just said parks and the library. I'm not sure what else was in there, but that money has been about 20 million. And I know they've allocated money for these things, but the question was, how do we have parks money, for example, as a definite certain amount percentage of it every year? So that may be the point to bring that back. I'm not sure, but or we could do it otherwise.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the clarification from both of you on what you're specifically looking for. That helps me, and and I understand there's a larger analysis there that you want done. So I'm happy to support that item and find out what that would look like specifically for housing, and that's it. Councilmember DeHart, did you want to raise your item again?
Yeah, I was asking if we could have just a short and quick presentation from the fire department to share with the community on how the new staffing positions that were approved in the budget by our last city council are going to impact the insurance services office, or the ISO fire score for the community. I think it's important for our commercial business and residential property owners to all know that the council's move and support for those fire positions will impact our insurance rates in a positive way. So I think it's just nice if the fire department could do a quick presentation on why is that? Why is that? How are we benefiting from all those positions that were just added?
Great, thank you. So as a matter of course, we've been limiting presentations at council meetings. So do we have an interest by other council members to do a presentation on this? Yes, from Councilmember Middleton. I'm seeing nods all around. Okay, great. And I would just note for our fire department, whoever presents it, we want to try to keep presentations at 5 minutes. And obviously you can submit any report or any other information is always welcome. Does anyone else have any other agenda development at this time? Councilmember Holstich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Sorry for getting into mayor mode and calling on me. Pro Tem earlier. It just came out of me. All the respect to you as mayor. I have a request about the $10 million that the city allocated into our housing fund, since Mayor Pro Tem just found a revenue stream into our housing fund, and hopefully we will get more dollars into it. And we are ramping up our lobbying activities and our work to get state and federal funding for infrastructure and housing and homelessness. I'd love to see us bring forward a plan or a discussion item or a recommendation from staff about how to start to think about deploying those funds into the community for housing and homelessness. So, so that will be up to staff to make those recommendations. I know we may need some of it for the navigation center, we may not. So I'd love to see a discussion about that so we don't sit on $10 million. That's for affordable housing, because we know it can be a 5-year or longer timeline to turn dollars into units, and we need as many units as we can right now. So I would request that council support a discussion item about ways that we can deploy the $10 million from the city's housing fund into housing and homelessness units or projects or services.
Thank you. I seeing a thumbs up from Councilmember DeHart. I'm certainly in. Okay, great. And I'm interested in that as well. And actually, Teresa, do we have someone that just was hired for housing?
We do, and I'm going to refer to Flynn on the exact title.
Yes, we have hired a housing services administrator position. The individual who was hired starts with us on January the 30th, and so we look forward to having her in place and assisting us with housing needs here in the community.
Great, thank you. So hopefully this item can be worked on in conjunction with her so that we can have the most up-to-date and efficient response there. Thank you. But unless there are,
I have one more item if I can. Thank you so much for pointing out to our new staff. So great to see staff joining us and the allocations that we made turning into real people to do housing and homelessness work. So welcome to them, to the team. I know we got a public comment up at the beginning of the meeting from David Feltman about capital projects and what's outstanding and what the process is, and having that information either for the council or just public on the website or something like that. So city staff, do you have a reply now, or is that something you could address in the future?
Yes, we intend to bring back an update on the CIP and its progress with the mid-year budget update as well. So that is tentatively planned for the second meeting in February.
Thank you. That would be great. And I know I have some requests and updates about capital improvement projects, just noting like the Demuth Community Center and the wall in front of there needs a lot of work. There's a lot of even just projects that are smaller that I'd love to get community feedback about as well. So having an agenda item works well. So thank you so much to city staff, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So if there are no other comments, all right, well, our next regularly scheduled city council meeting will be on January 26th at 5:30 p.m. But just a note that we do have a special city council meeting this Friday at 2:30 p.m. And this is a closed session meeting. With that, I adjourn the meeting. Good night, everyone.